Let's pull up the story real quick, too, get some context here. We have this from Timcast.com. De Blasio says people will be forced to accept COVID vaccines if their, quote, paychecks depend on it.
Wow.
This dude was giving an interview, and he basically said, I will destroy your life to get you to do what we want you to do. And I was just like, if you want to live in that city and you want to live under his boot and lick it,
they like it.
Feel free to do it.
Yeah. If you want,
I'd leave.
If you want to call anything white supremacy, that's it right there. Yeah. If you look at the vax mandates, who it predominantly affects, the consequences of it, especially in New York City, especially with people of color. Holy frickin'
His name's
cow!
Wilhelm.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I mean, look at. I just call him Bozo the Clown.
Should we call him Kaiser?
Yeah.
I am absolutely.
My favorite image from
that
this year.
He still has any political power.
My favorite image, one of my favorite images of this year, videos really, is him alone in Times Square dancing with his wife.
Yep.
When everyone was not allowed to be in there. When everyone was told, get away, you're not allowed to come to Times Square.
It's a mad
only
king.
The special elites, only the people who give out the orders will be celebrating and dancing in the middle of it, as the order followers will kick everyone out. It was disgusting.
Look at this.
And the New York Times made that one of the photos of the year that they were celebrating and toting as something great.
Yeah.
They didn't show Bill De Blasio dancing there by himself with his wife, with police officers protecting them.
Meanwhile, the governor's a mass murderer.
Oh,
yeah.
They kicked out everyone from Times Square, and then they had their private dance.
So you can have a little prom night. That's cute.
It's cute, right?
So this is, listen, man.
I think I like your point that people with kids, people with families should leave. There's really nothing that they could do. I will not fault anybody for leaving if there's really nothing else they can do. But I did write a piece for Timcast. It was in August, I think. It was called Here's How New Yorkers Can Fight Back Against Medical Mandates, where I interviewed somebody from the New York Young Republican Club. And they talked about basically how they're like staging like sit-ins and anti-mask protests and rallies. And I think non-compliance is like a truly American virtue. I mean, it's what basically birthed this country and birthed this nation. And I would hate to just have everyone retreat when I think there is a silent majority, and I think it's time for them to speak up. And I know everyone's so tired of everyone saying, "Oh, silent majority," but I think it's a real thing, and I think people are scared. And if you can afford to not leave, and if you can afford to, not comply, I think you should.
I totally agree. Were they in the city?
Yep.
Yeah. So like that's a different, like the city is a whole different world from the rest of New York. I said this last time. Like this, New York City is a little pea at the bottom of the state that kind of dictates the policy for the rest of this giant state. And they vote sometimes overwhelmingly red while the city votes blue. I would hope for non-compliance if you can. That's the way to go for sure.
Non-violent civil disobedience.
Yes.
It's as simple as people just being like, no.
Just say no.
And then
we will not comply.
Yeah.
It's like a perfect American phrase, and it's just like we forgot about it, or we attribute it to like white supremacists or something.
Yeah. Ben Shapiro did not forget. Daily Wire guys did not forget.
Yeah,
that's like they're all their logo icons, avatars or whatever. Do not comply. We will not comply. It's crazy how.
But they also retreated. Like they left a state that was pretty dystopian, like New York. But it's good to say not comply. But I also think
I don't blame them for
cities,
that, though.
It's
I
kind
don't
of
blame them at all.
It's kind of a FU, and it sends a message to the state. I think it's kind of good in some sense because it does send a message, and I think that people are going to look at that and be like, hey, we need to make a change, or hey, something's up.
Yeah. Some people argue that you're voting with your feet. Right? By staying in New York City, you're paying their taxes, you're part of their workforce, you're incentivizing people to say, I will control every aspect of your life, and you will obey, and you will live underneath my boot. No, I won't. I'm going to go to Florida. I'm going to go to New Hampshire. Right. I'm going to go to West Virginia. I'm going to go to Texas. I'm going to go where my rights are respected, where my money actually goes towards the greater good and doesn't go towards discriminating against people, doesn't go towards giving people less opportunities because they didn't do a procedure that a government bureaucrat wanted them to do. And it's sickening what's happening in New York City. And there are some people standing up. There was recently a large number of people arrested because they went to restaurants and they said, hey, we're not going to comply with the whims of government. We're not going to ask the government permission and get their permission slip to eat here. And they were asked to leave. They said no, and they did sit-ins.
Yeah.
Cops came in, they followed orders, and they arrested them.
How isn't this weird? It's just so weird that the way politics is evolving in this country. I've always been on the side of businesses should apply should grant access to public accommodation for members of the public. But now it's crazy to see many people on the right arguing that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like before, it's just I don't know, man. I saw a really crazy image of a building, a vaccine warehouse being burned down. And someone on the right being like, this is how you stick it to authoritarianism or whatever. And I'm like, bro, that's an Antifa tweet. I'm like, what is going on?
But I think that the difference there is their anger is rooted in something that's really happening. And sometimes the things that Antifa are rioting, they're rioting over manipulated realities.
Yep.
You know, like
inflated
numbers of, deaths, or whatever. You know, like I had a friend who would tell me like thousands of black men die, a year by cops. And I'm like, really? I don't know if that's the number.
It's like 23.
I would show her the number. She would say, well, the numbers are systemically racist. And I was like, and then I'm racist for showing her the systemically racist. Oh my goodness.
I had a friend, and they were posting stuff about the migrant crisis. That was wrong. So I took the refugee document from the UN website, sent her the link, and said, hey, just FYI, what's going on here is X, Y, and Z. The people coming from so there's 3 Mediterranean routes. There's the Western, the Central, and the Eastern. I don't think it's called Central, but there was 3 routes. One goes through Spain, one goes from Libya through Italy, and then one goes through Greece, through Lesbos. And I was just like, the people who are coming in through Greece are the refugees from Afghanistan and Iraq. And the people who are coming from the Central and Western routes are economic migrants from Nigeria and other countries. And then she just said, screw you, and blocked me.
Oh.
And I was like, I don't know what just happened.
She slapped your microphone.
Yeah.
I didn't insult her. I didn't call her name. I had one friend. This was crazy. Someone I talked to all the time. We hung out a lot in New York, who told me that they now believed in conversion therapy because so this is crazy, right? Check this out. If you talk to someone on the left, they will cheer when you hear someone say, like Canada has banned conversion therapy. They'll go like, yay. And I'm talking to this friend. She's a woman. And she was saying that it was transphobic for people to not want to date people of the same sex if they were transgender. And so I was like, all right, hold on. Let me like, I'm trying to understand you. So I was like, you're a woman and you're attracted to men. And she was like, yes. And I said, so you're saying that you personally are attracted to people who are biologically female, who have female genitalia, but have transitioned. And she said, no. And I said, so do you think that's transphobic? And she said, well, I could learn to like it. Ooh. And I said, isn't that conversion therapy?
That sounds like grooming.
Like changing trying to convert someone's sexuality. And then she got really mad and said, no, you're being transphobic. And I was like, I thought you were being transphobic. I was like, all I did was genuinely ask. She blocked me.
Yeah.
But to be fair, she deleted all of her social media and said, I can't take this anymore. And I think what really happened is, like when we talk with RA, these are people who are on Facebook. These are people who are on Twitter. And they get a worldview a bubble world from the group they follow. Yeah. This is what people need to understand. Who you follow on Twitter, if you're active on Twitter, is shaping your reality, and it can be distorting it. So they say so I follow a lot of conservative personalities, a lot of leftist and liberal personalities. I follow Hassan. I follow Vosh. I follow a few other people. I don't want to get anyone else dragged. They're famous, so I'll leave it there. But a few other like lesser well-known leftist journalists, as well as all the mainstream publications, Vice, and that way I'm seeing what they're saying. I'm seeing what people are saying, and I get a view of both, groups. But a lot of these people, like this former friend of mine, was probably only on Facebook in a group of friends who were all regurgitating the same woke garbage. And then when I simply asked questions, I think what really happened was she realized the world she lived in on Facebook was not real, and she couldn't take the pressure of it anymore and deleted it.
Scary.
I would even go further. It's not who you follow. It's who the big tech algorithms decide you see, because now it doesn't even matter because they curate a lot of the timelines. Twitter is still one of the few places where you actually see the people you actually follow, but most social media, especially Facebook and Instagram, they have a carefully curated algorithm that they have even done psychological studies on that could create certain emotional outcomes. And I think there's a correlation between the mental and wellness of just people going down dramatically with the onset of social media. But it's not just our personal well-being that's being affected here. It's not just our mental health. It's also our political discourse, which is being bastardized. And I think the echo chambers that are created, the echo chambers that many people blindly follow, because also, as you mentioned, Tim, you try to get different perspectives, but a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't want to see different perspectives. They want to see their perspective regurgitated to them from different kind of points of view.
They also might not have time.
Reestablishing the same idea. Reinforcing that idea.
I got to pull something up that's really funny. But keep talking.
I think this is my crazy wacky theory. Is Facebook years ago? Remember that debate over if it's a blue dress or a gold dress?
Yeah.
That was us getting prepped for the fracturing of reality.
Oh,
who believes what? And they're just back there. They're judging who does what. Like, you should do a report on that.
I can't do it with Facebook and Instagram now. I think I'm shadow banned on Instagram. Even when people do see my post, half the time it has that warning over it, like fact checkers have deemed this false, and it'll be like the most mundane thing.
It's a badge of honor.
It's not even crazy.
I saw something on Twitter earlier. It was someone talking smack on vaccine mandates, and right below it was a promoted Pfizer tweet.
Let me pull up this story for you guys. Tim Pool confirmed leftist. This is from ground.news, blind spotter. And it says 53% of the news Timcast interacts with on Twitter leans left. Top 3 influencers are Vosh, Michael Malice, and Jack Posobiec.
Wow.
Perfectly balanced, as all things should be. Indeed. Now, to be fair, the reason why it says most of the news I interact with leans left is because it's the New York Times, it's CNN, it's Newsweek. These are mainstream news publications. They lean left. The media has a leftist bias or a liberal bias. Michael Malice is slightly leaning left with a big, right wing right there. Vosh is overwhelmingly left and Jack is overwhelmingly right. This right here is really fascinating. First of all, I'm obviously not a leftist, but I think it's fair to say that on policy issues and certain issues, I am center left, libertarian, a little, difference in opinion from Luke on some ways. But when you look at Vosh, his worldview is comprised almost exclusively of leftist media. Michael Malice's worldview is mixed between liberal and conservative media, and Jack Posobiec is a little bit of liberal media, but mostly conservative media. This makes total sense based on the way they interact with media, the things they believe, the things they say. Why does Vosh think that, the first time he came here, he said, Tim Pool, he told me to my face, you're far right. Because the only media he interacts with is left media, who make up, garbled nonsense about me. Now he says conservative. Why? Because he actually came here and interacted with me. And now, he comes here and we agreed on a bunch of stuff. In fact, when we had the Charlie Kirk and Vosh debate, I was actually a lot of the stuff he said, I was like, I agree with you. You're correct. That point is true. And these things are true. And then a lot of people who followed him were like, oh, I didn't realize, they're like based Tim and things like that. If these people just mixed up their news sources a little bit, got a healthier balance, everyone might actually calm down. The problem is, New York Times, CNN, Newsweek, my top 3 sources, they lean left. So if Vosh is just watching MSNBC, CNN, reading The Nation and all that stuff, and it's overwhelmingly left media, then I don't know how you break someone out of that broken reality.
Can you put anyone's Twitter handle in there?
You want me to do you?
Yeah.
Luke, we are change?
Luke, we are change.
It's going to be like he's a crackpot conspiracy guy. Look at that, Luke.
What?
44% left?
44% left. Bro, it's because the New York Times.
Zero hedge
and Hive. But it's because the New York Times is a left-wing publication.
Yeah.
So when you Ground News is a good job of this. Look at that. Thomas Massey, Glenn Greenwald, and Cernovich are your sources. And Glenn Greenwald is very left when it comes to the media.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then you've got Cernovich, who's very balanced. Yeah. Interestingly, look how small the centrist is in Cernovich. Massey's got a little bit bigger one. Luke, you've got a 21% moderate. Let's see. Let's go back to mine, because what was the percentage of moderate for me? 23% center. But most of it leans left. Why? The mainstream press is a liberal media machine, and this proves it. Let's jump over to Vosh. Look at this. He only interacts with 64% left wing. The New York Times, the Daily Beast, and AJC. What percent? I can't even see the percent of right. Shuan Head, Ken Klippenstein, and Hassan the Sun, all overwhelmingly left personalities. So Vosh's worldview is inherently broken because he's not consuming media from other people. He's in an echo chamber where he hears what he wants to hear. I mean no disrespect. I respect that he was actually being fair to a certain degree when he was talking about the RA thing. He like he said, if it was any other mixed race person complaining about racism, you would be on their side. But because Tim Pool, you don't like him. He is correct about that. You know what I think? Vosh, I think, is a smart guy. I think if he actually started adding in some non-left-wing news, even like he needs to mix in a little bit of conservative sources. He'd be like, hold on. Wait, this right-wing source says X, but the New York Times says Y. Where's the break here? And I'll give you a really good example. The Washington Examiner reports that the January 6th committee admits to doctoring the message from Jim Jordan to Mark Meadows. That is a fact. What did the Independent report? Jim Jordan confirms he sent message to Mark Meadows. The objective truth is The message was from Jim Jordan, and it was altered. Now, if you only read the left source, you probably don't know it was altered. Really good example when we had Hunter Avallone on the show, and he said Joe Biden didn't do anything wrong with the quid pro quo, and he didn't know anything about Viktor Shokin and Zlochevsky and anything that happened with Burisma, and I did. Because not only did I read the conservative outlets, the mainstream outlets, I literally read Ukrainian news sources on what was going on. Mm-hmm. So if you have people like Vosh who only consume echo chamber content, that's what you get. Shuonhead, look at this. Even Shuonhead is 76. She's worse than Vosh. But she does have 13%, conservative in there. And she just interacts for the most part with people who are on the left. This is really interesting. Let's take a look at a conservative personality. Jack Posobiec. He's overwhelmingly right-wing. And he consumes media from people who are also overwhelmingly in the right-wing sphere. I think it's fair to say you look at how people consume news and you can predict their viewpoints and how they view the world. I think everybody, even Jack, should be reading a lot more of mainstream news sources. Mm-hmm. Well, I say Jack should read more mainstream news sources because he's clearly getting more right-wing sources. And, Vosh should read more right-wing and independent sources because he's clearly getting nothing but mainstream sources.
You should treat it like crossing the street. You don't only look right when you're crossing the street, especially in New York City with the crazy drivers that they have in there. You look left and you look right before crossing the street. And I think, that's a perspective that's gone for a lot of people. A lot of the people don't want to face a different reality than the one that they're codified in, the one that they feel safe in. And a lot of people do feel safe by having their kind of political voices reinforced, their beliefs reinforced. And I'm a big fan of just waking them up, shocking them as much as you can, and having them wake up to the true reality of the world.
This is why I think right here we have Ben Shapiro. This is why I think Ben Shapiro is so smart, so quick, and why he's his opinions are crafted by facts. And he doesn't get everything right. I don't agree with all of his opinions. But you can see here from his Ground News Blind Spotter, 38% of his news is left-wing, 18% is moderate, and 44% is right-wing. It makes sense. Ben's a conservative guy. He follows people who are consume middle of the road across the board. Look at this. Steve Miller, Red Steez, a healthy news diet in the middle. These are the people that I think, you are doing a good job. When Ben has a debate with someone like Malcolm Nance and he nails all of his facts and his opinions are crafted by those facts.
Well read.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. From good sourcing and mixing it up and trying to understand both sides.
I grew up with 10 channels. And my dad's a centrist, leans right, but he would always tell us you got to watch everything. Mm-hmm. And I would always notice when he got into friendly debates at Thanksgiving or something, he would know the other person's argument if they happened to be on the other side better than they knew his argument. So he's arguing their point and his point, and they're hearing things from him that are completely from another world to them. So
it's even being able to be willing to have those conversations. A lot of people are afraid of having those conversations. They're prevented at having those conversations. So even though yesterday was kind of a crap show, the conversation at least happened. People were kind of forced to have it. Yes. And I think there's a layer of it, too, that we could still salvage from the craziness, some kind of understanding from where other people are coming from. And I think one of the biggest signs of intelligence is being able to have an open mind. If you're able to hear ideas that are critical of yours without having an emotional reaction, and then you could logically, critically think about them and assess the facts of the case. Very few people do that. They just want to be emotionally clickbaited into something that makes them feel nice and reinforces their side.
Let me tell you why Brian Stelter will never be on par with Ben Shapiro. And this is a good example. 90% of what he interacts with as a media correspondent for CNN is left-wing media. Oliver Darcy, who is a media correspondent for CNN, 85% left-wing content. These are the guys who are supposed to be covering the right. They don't even read it. Reliable sources. The media show on CNN is 99% left-wing media. Wow. They do not interact with anyone but themselves. These guys are sitting at the bottom of a well, talking to each other about. Actually, you know what? They're the people sitting in the cave, the allegory of the cave, looking at the shadows, thinking they know the world, and they're not interacting with it at all.
Yep.
So this is something that I mentioned to Olivia when I was driving her over, because I was like, I don't want to argue with someone who doesn't understand what we're talking about. I want someone who's well-read, well-informed, someone who can change my perspective because they know facts that I don't. Like talking about redlining and blockbusting. That's stuff I want to know about because that changes my view on stuff like systemic racism. But it's very hard to find someone on the left. Maybe it's just because it's easier to only read left-wing sources, like what Brian Stelter apparently is doing. I cannot believe that these are the people that they choose to cover the media. I forget who it was who was advertising for a right-wing media like reporter. And I was like, well, as far as I know, as far as these people are telling me, the right wing doesn't even exist. There is none.
Yeah, I think there's also a debate to be had with a lot of people on the left wanting to give handouts, wanting to help others so they don't have to work towards something. Because when you have an idea that contradicts your viewpoint, you have to work to combat it. And I think there's an aspect of people having the ability to be able to work. And I think maybe that's why a lot of right-wingers are for work, for having this kind of Protestant work ethic compared to people who want to be the mother in our kind of larger society and give people help and be their supportive role. And I think a healthy society has a mother figure and a father figure that has both kind of influence on people's lives so they get a fair perspective on it. Because if you go too far in either direction, you're going to be in an unhealthy direction, you're going to be unbalanced, and you're not going to be a person that's going to kind of fare well with the kind of rules and circumstances of our society.
So I want to pull up, this is called Mediaopoly from Ground News. You can see 32% of the news Tim Pool interacts with on Twitter is media conglomerate owned. Tim Pool has a slightly concentrated news diet. So you can see 11% of the news I consume is independent, or it does say, I think it's interacts with. Mostly mainstream media, then private equity, then wealthy private owners, telecom companies, and other. I want to do this. I'm going to pull up, look at all this. Let me go back. I'm going to pull up Luke, We Are Change. And I'm willing to bet Luke has here's my bet. Luke's going to have a big independent media bubble. What do you think, Luke?
Probably.
You think so?
Yeah.
Not so much. Bigger, actually smaller than mine by 1%. You have wealthy private owners, followed by media conglomerates and private equity. But here's the reason. Here's why I pulled this up. What do you think's going to happen when I pull up Brian Stelter? Let's find out. Brian Stelter, media reporter for CNN. Oh, he's overwhelmingly telecom companies. Now that's probably because CNN, because he's within the CNN bubble. Reliable sources, 96% telecom. Wow. Oliver Darcy, telecom. These people live not only in a bubble of leftism, but they only really interact probably with the news coming out of their own network, which is full of garbage and, as we can see, heavily biased. So they're effectively, the way I described it with Jack Dorsey is that his worldview was shaped by gargling the sewage of his own platform. He created a platform. It had a negative effect on society, producing extreme activism. He then consumed it all and came to believe the garbage coming out of his own machine.
Stop it, man! You're giving me visuals here.
I gotta say that
literally doing that.
I think Jack Dorsey has been unleashed. I think he was constrained a bit by Twitter being the CEO. Now that he's out, the one thing he tweeted was transitory in quotes. He tweeted that Rothbard recently. Yeah. I'm willing to bet now that he's not there, he's going to give it some time. He might come out and actually start blowing people's minds. No joke.
That'd be nice.
Would be great. I hit him up, actually. He'd
be great to interview.
I asked him if he wanted to come on the show and talk about his views on blockchain, and the future of social media. And he said at some point.
That'd be great.
Well, he's huge.
More than I can say for a lot of other people.
He's huge into decentralized currencies. And him, tweeting out Rothbard, is just a perfect example of people realizing the true power of decentralization and understanding that if you try to control everything in life and centralize power, you're creating real life harm that translates to, of course, the natural stopping of human progression.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to watch live, you can check out this channel Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and if you want more unfiltered and uncensored content with all of these guests, go to timcast.com and become a member. All of these guests you know and love in exclusive segments on our website where we are unrestricted in what we talk about. So you'll definitely not want to miss it. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all next time.